Honestly, might just be me, but whenever I'm leaving my parents' house, I just give them a nice. Alright, see ya!
Hey guys, afternoon. Today we're going to be talking about some legalization updates and how much money is really going into taxes. So since there's such a huge fluctuation in legalized states and non-legalized states, and some have medical and some have recreational, I feel like it's kind of important every once in a while to do updates on some states and see where they're at, especially ones that have recently had something happen. And we have three that we're going to focus on today. It's going to be Montana, Illinois, and Connecticut, and just kind of see where they're all at. As you probably know, Illinois does have recreational, but they're still kind of messing with the actual law there, and then the other two do not. So we'll start with Montana. Montana is a case where it just recently, last week, a bill was signed that gave them recreational marijuana, and this is another one of those Republican-led states that had marijuana on the ballot in November, and overwhelmingly large amount of support, just like South Dakota, very similar to South Dakota actually, because Montana, it was a long road to get to the governor's desk, and eventually finally did last week, and Governor Greg Gianforte signed the law. Of course, what it did more than anything is it legalized recreational marijuana, so that is now legal. But also one of the more important things that it did was it created a drug court, a special drug court for past criminal offenses of marijuana, and kind of dealing with how to expunge those records. So that's rather important for the state there. And retail sales of marijuana are going to begin January of next year. So it's going to be a while before marijuana comes to the state, but it's going to eventually happen. Next up is Illinois, where we've said in the past, we said on Wednesday, I think, that the marijuana business of Illinois is just absolutely booming. It's doing incredibly well. One of the more shocking stats that has just come out is that the last quarter, marijuana did better in sales than alcohol did, which is crazy to even imagine. But there's a problem with Illinois, and it's that of all the licenses that have been given to marijuana businesses, none of them have been majority owned by a person of color. So there have been attempts at trying to get licenses to these people. There are basically 75 licenses that are out there in limbo, and they have been approved for people but not actually given to them to use. And recently a new social equity bill has just passed the House that will give another 110 in a lottery system to people who have been affected by the war on drugs. So that in total would be 185 licenses to businesses owned by people of color, which would be extremely important. And the fact that there are zero at this point is extremely alarming. But so Illinois, in total doing great. When you actually look at it, when you actually look at the numbers, it seems like only white people are benefiting from the whole thing. And then finally Connecticut, where there isn't a whole lot going on, but it seems like there's becoming a very quick changing of gears on how people see it. And it's because of polls coming out where it's showing people more and more into the idea of legal recreational marijuana. 64% of people are in favor of legal weed, either somewhat or extremely. And that is changing the mindset of even some Republicans in the state. So they're thinking that sometime next week there's going to be a bill that's going to show up in the House, and will probably vote in favor. So Connecticut is looking like it's getting very close. And those are kind of the three updates that we have. Connecticut on its way, Montana's just getting it, has some cool things with drug courts, and then finally Illinois, which is doing great, but there's a lot of fixing that needs to be done.
How you feeling, man?
I'm pretty lucky.
Say what?
I'm fine. I'm pretty fine.
What?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Can you finish these lyrics real quick?
Okay.
Back home again.
I can't wait to get back on the road again. Back again?
Dude.
Like Freddy Baggins?
Like,
I don't know if I know the song. Here's the lyrics.
back home again.
Back home again.
In
Indiana land. Damn, man.
Okay, then again, another kind of update from Wednesday's show where we talked about the huge amount of money that people are making from marijuana. California has made in the last year, in 2020, they made $1 billion in tax revenue from marijuana, which is crazy. The question is, what is the cost of that? Like, how are they making so much money? And the answer is there are places like Los Angeles or San Jose or Oakland where the tax rate is insane. So there's the 15% state excise tax, and then there's the 10% local business tax, and then there's the 9.5% local and state sales tax. Here's a nice little chart that Leafly has put together that kind of shows how much, if you were to spend $100 in pre-tax weed, this is what it would come down to depending on where you are in California. And then you have places like, Los Angeles and Hollywood, where you're spending almost half that, almost 50% more than what you expected. And this can really be a problem when you're looking at that and saying, and if you're strapped on cash and you're thinking, I would rather just spend $100 and I can do that without any tax by going into the black market area. So there is a concern there that this is kind of discouraging people from getting into the legal market. Base case scenario is you're going to another place close like San Bernardino where there's much less tax on the weed, and ironically weed California has very little tax. And then you have places like Oregon where they do not allow local taxes to go anywhere beyond 3%. So they're in a much better position to get people interested in the legal market after having spent way less in the black. There's an interview done by KCRW, who's talking to David Downs, a Leafly senior editor, and here's an interesting quote from that. Let's see. Californians just legalized cannabis in 2016. We've had legal sales for 3 years, and the main driver of these price increases is that local cities can set a local business tax rate for cannabis. That's anywhere from 0 to 15% of gross receipts. And just for comparison, Oakland's cannabis taxes are 417 times higher than Oakland's taxes on guns and ammo business. And in Los Angeles, the marijuana taxes on businesses are 2,808 times higher than the business taxes on a check cashing or payday lender. Crazy. And I do wonder if this is something that we're just going to get used to and will just be the case from now on, or if it will eventually come down when there starts to have to be a little bit of a competition between local governments to get more people buying marijuana, because people are going to start to catch on and go to places where the taxes is a little bit more cheap. Anyway, that's why California is doing so well with the tax revenue. They're just taxing you up the butt. Cool, and that's the end of this week. We will be back on Monday for some more weed news. See you then.
Just relax, my friend. You're overthinking. And even if there is a problem, there's a solution. Remember to breathe, put your mind at ease. Soon this feeling's gonna pass, you will find relief.